a journey written thousands of years ago and still not forgotten. The story of a man trying to return home from Troy, fighting gods, monsters, and himself. A hero who became a legend through his wit, patience, and faith. This is the tale of Odysseus, Homer's Odyssey. The Trojan War was over. The heroes had returned to their homes. But one of them was still on the road, Odysseus, king of Ithaca. He had survived the war, but the road home had turned into a nightmare because of his mistakes against the gods, especially the wrath of Poseidon, god of the sea. He was left wandering for years. Years passed, and Odysseus still hadn't reached home. Meanwhile, things were falling apart in Ithaca. In the king's absence, the palace had been overrun by nearly 50 noble suitors. All of them wanted to marry Penelope, consuming the kingdom's wealth and acting as if they already ruled. But Penelope never lost hope. She refused to believe that Odysseus was dead. She wept through the nights and distracted them by day. Then she devised a clever trick. "I will marry one of you," she said, "once I finish weaving my husband's funeral shroud." But every night, in secret, she unraveled what she had woven during the day. She kept this up for years. Outside the palace, Odysseus' son Telemachus had grown up. But without a father, he was a young man no one respected, no voice, no power. Then one day, the goddess Athena appeared to him. "Your father is not dead," she told him. "He's being held captive. You must be brave. You must go find him." Telemachus felt a fire spark inside him. That night, he couldn't sleep. The next morning, he gathered the people. He spoke of the ruin in the palace, of how the suitors had brought shame to the kingdom. They laughed at him. But he had made his decision. No matter what had happened to his father, he was going to find him. First stop, Pylos, then Sparta, and Athena would be with him every step of the way. In Pylos, they met the old king Nestor. Nestor explained that after Troy, every hero had taken a different path home, and Odysseus had vanished. But he gave Telemachus a piece of advice: keep searching, be brave. Their next stop was Sparta. King Menelaus and Helen recognized Telemachus right away. When Odysseus' name was mentioned, Menelaus' eyes filled with tears. He hadn't forgotten his cleverness or his courage. Then he shared something important. Years ago in Egypt, he had learned from the sea god Proteus that Odysseus was still alive. But he was trapped on a distant island, held by the goddess Calypso. Back in Ithaca, the suitors realized Telemachus had left. They plotted to kill him on his way home. When Penelope heard of it, she was devastated. She wept through the night. But Athena came to her in a dream. "Your son is alive," she said. "Don't be afraid." Now the gods began to move. By Zeus's command, Hermes was sent to the island where Odysseus was being held. For years, he had been Calypso's prisoner. She didn't want to let him go, but she couldn't defy the gods. Through tears, she said goodbye. Odysseus built a raft. On the 5th day, he set out to sea. But just as Ithaca came into view, Poseidon saw him. He unleashed a storm. The raft shattered. Odysseus clung to a piece of wood, struggling against the waves for hours. When he was about to drown, the sea goddess Ino appeared. She gave him a magical veil, one that would protect him in the water. With Athena's help, Odysseus survived. He washed up on the shore of a distant land, the kingdom of the Phaeacians. There, the king's daughter, Nausicaa, found him. He bathed, dressed, and was taken to the palace. He kept his identity secret. But one night, the bard Telemachus sang of Troy and the wooden horse. Odysseus couldn't hold back his tears. There was no point in hiding anymore. He stood up. "I am Odysseus," he said. "Let me tell you what happened to me." And so, the tale began. As he sailed home from Troy, he first attacked the land of the Cicones. They won the battle, but in the counterattack, many of his men were killed. Next, they arrived among the lotus eaters. Their fruit erased memory. Some of his men forgot their homeland and wanted to stay. Odysseus dragged them back to the ship and set sail again. Then came the island of the Cyclops, Polyphemus. Odysseus was curious. He wanted to meet the giant. Polyphemus devoured his men and sealed the cave with a massive stone. Odysseus came up with a plan. He got the Cyclops drunk on wine and blinded him. Until then, he had kept his name hidden. But as they escaped, he couldn't help himself. "I am Odysseus," he shouted. Polyphemus cried out to his father, Poseidon, "Don't let him reach his home." And so the curse began. During his journey, Odysseus encountered Aeolus, the keeper of the winds. Aeolus trapped all the winds in a bag except for the west wind to guide them home. But Odysseus's men, thinking it was treasure, opened the bag. All the winds escaped. The ship was blown far off course. Aeolus refused to help them again. Then came the land of the Laestrygonians, giants who destroyed every ship. Only Odysseus's vessel survived. They reached the island of Circe. She turned his men into pigs. But Hermes gave Odysseus a magical plant to protect him from her spell. He resisted her magic. Circe lifted the curse and became their ally. They stayed there for a year, but the longing for home grew stronger. Before they left, Circe gave Odysseus a final warning. "You must descend into the underworld and seek a prophecy." Odysseus descended into the land of the dead. There, he saw the spirit of his mother. Then the prophet Tiresias appeared. His prophecy was clear. "Do not touch the sacred cattle of Helios. If you do, your men will die. When you return home, your palace will be overrun. But if you are patient, you will find peace in old age." After leaving Hades, Odysseus faced more trials. He resisted the siren's song, survived monsters, but his men, driven by hunger, slaughtered the cattle of Helios. Zeus struck their ship with a lightning bolt. They all died. Odysseus alone clung to a piece of wreckage, drifting for days, until he reached Calypso's island. That was the story Odysseus told. The Phaeacians were amazed. They gave him gifts and quietly returned him to the shores of Ithaca. When Odysseus opened his eyes, he didn't recognize his homeland. Athena appeared. She disguised him as an old beggar. No one would recognize him now. First, he went to the home of his loyal swineherd, Eumaeus. Meanwhile, Athena brought Telemachus back from his journey. Father and son met in the humble hut. And they made a plan. Odysseus would enter the palace disguised as a beggar. Telemachus would hide the weapons. The palace was in chaos. The suitors ate, drank, and pressured Penelope to remarry. But she still hadn't given up hope. Odysseus entered the palace in disguise. He moved among the suitors. Antinous struck him with a stool. Penelope felt pity for the old man. She wanted to speak with him. At last, Penelope announced a challenge. Whoever can string Odysseus's bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads, he shall marry me. It was Odysseus's bow. No one could string it, not even Telemachus. Then came the beggar's turn. Odysseus took the bow, strung it effortlessly, drew the arrow, and fired right through all 12 axe heads. The beggar stood up. "I am Odysseus," he said. Then he loosed the arrow straight into Antinous' throat. The hall erupted into chaos. With Telemachus, Eumaeus, and a few loyal servants by his side, Odysseus slaughtered every last suitor. The disloyal servants were punished. The palace was cleansed, Penelope was told, but she didn't believe it, not right away. She decided to test the man standing before her. "Move our bed to another room," she said. Odysseus objected. "That bed cannot be moved. Its frame is still rooted to the trunk of a living olive tree." Penelope's eyes filled with tears. Only the two of them knew that secret. Now she was sure. Her husband had returned. They embraced, and all the years of longing spilled out in tears. The next morning, Odysseus went to see his elderly father, Laertes. They were reunited at last. But in the city, the families of the slain suitors were rising in anger. A civil war was about to erupt. And just then, Athena descended from the heavens. By the command of Zeus, peace was declared. And so, Odysseus' long journey through storms, gods, monsters, and sorrow finally ended at home, surrounded by his people and his family in peace.